There's something controlling you right now. It's there, hidden beneath your thoughts, silently pulling the strings, shaping your decisions, deciding your reactions before you even realize it. It's not the people around you, not your circumstances, not even the loud voice of the world outside. It's something far more dangerous, far more personal, something that lives within you. It's not what you expect. It doesn't scream. It doesn't force you. It whispers, it nudges. It wraps itself around your mind until you start to believe it's you. But it's not you. It's your unchecked emotions, and while you've been busy blaming the world, while you've been focused on the challenges, the failures, the setbacks, this hidden enemy has been quietly steering your life, directing your choices, shaping your future. Every time you explode in anger, every time you drown in sadness, every time you hesitate out of fear, this silent saboteur wins. It doesn't need to overpower you. It just needs you to stay unaware. That's its strength. The less you see it, the stronger it becomes. Think about the moments when you've reacted without thinking, the moments when your anger drove you to say things you regretted, the moments when fear made you miss opportunities that could have changed your life, the moments when sadness convinced you to give up, to stay stuck, to shrink yourself. None of those moments were fully you. They were the enemy's fingerprints, but because you thought it was you making those decisions, you let it slide. You justified your reactions. You said, "That's just how I am," and that's exactly how it wins. It convinces you that you are your emotions, that you can't separate yourself from them, that you are a prisoner inside your own mind. But what if you're not? What if you've been under a spell? What if you've been living on autopilot, unknowingly handing over the keys to your life every single day? Most people live like this forever, completely unaware that they've been hijacked by patterns that don't serve them. They build entire lives around avoiding uncomfortable emotions, chasing temporary pleasures, running from fear, and silencing pain. They think they're living, but they're not free. They're trapped in emotional loops. They get angry, then feel guilty. They feel sad, then feel weak. They feel fear, then avoid. Round and round it goes. Years pass. Dreams fade. Potential dies quietly, not because they didn't have talent, not because they didn't have opportunities, but because they never mastered the enemy within. The truth is brutal but simple. Your emotions are supposed to serve you. They are messengers. They are not supposed to chain you. When you feel fear, it's a signal, not a stop sign. When you feel anger, it's an alert, not a command. But we've grown up believing the opposite. We think our emotions are facts. We think our feelings must always be obeyed. So when sadness arrives, we follow it into the dark. When anxiety knocks, we open the door wide. When frustration shows up, we let it drag us into arguments, mistakes, wasted energy. All the while, the hidden enemy sits back and smiles because you've already surrendered. But if you pause and look closer, you will see it. It's not invisible. It's just been ignored. The emotional reactions, the triggers, the stories you tell yourself in the heat of the moment. They are patterns, old scripts replaying in your mind. They are not who you are. They are not permanent. They are not in control unless you hand them the power. The enemy survives in silence. It survives because you don't look it in the eye. It survives because you think the problem is someone else. You think if you just fix your job, your relationship, your environment, you'll feel better. But emotions don't care about geography. You can move to another city and still carry the same anger. You can find another partner and still bring the same insecurities. You can chase new opportunities and still be haunted by the same fears. You can run as far as you want, but the hidden enemy is always packed in your suitcase. To break free, you must be willing to face it. You must be willing to sit in the discomfort, to watch the rise of your emotions without immediately reacting. That's where you start to reclaim your life. The power comes in that tiny space between stimulus and response. It's in that space where you remember you are not your emotions. You are the observer. You are the master. But the enemy wants you to forget that space exists. It wants you to react instantly, impulsively, blindly. It wants you to feel like you have no choice, but you always have a choice. You've just been trained to forget. There is no external battle more important than this one. The greatest war you will ever fight is not against the world. It is against the hidden patterns that control your mind from within. The battle is silent. No one else can see it. No one else will clap for you when you win it. But it is the war that defines the course of your life. Because if you don't master your emotions, they will master you. And the price of losing is too high. It's your peace. It's your growth. It's your destiny. There's something controlling you right now. But it doesn't have to. The hidden enemy only has as much power as you're willing to give. And the moment you begin to see it, really see it, that's the moment you begin to take your life back. You can't fight what you can't see, but the moment you start to see, everything changes. The first step to mastering your emotions is not forcing yourself to feel differently. It's learning to watch, to truly watch. Most people don't realize they're not paying attention to themselves. They wake up and immediately start running, doing, reacting. They move through the day without ever pausing to observe what's happening inside them. Their minds jump from one thought to the next, one problem to the next, one worry to the next, and in this chaos, their emotions take control. When anger rises, they explode. When fear appears, they shrink. When sadness creeps in, they collapse. They don't see the gap between what happens and how they respond, so they live trapped in the automatic pull of their emotions, not realizing they've surrendered the most powerful thing they have, the power to choose. Awareness is the weapon they've never been taught to use. Awareness is not simply knowing you are angry or sad or afraid. It's stepping outside the emotion and seeing it as if you're watching it from above. It's creating space between you and what you feel. That space is everything. It's the doorway to self-mastery, but most people never open it because they've been trained to react instantly. They've been trained to obey every emotional impulse. They think if they feel something, they must act on it, but feelings are not facts. Emotions are not orders. They are just signals. And when you pause, when you slow down, when you watch yourself in those emotional moments, you start to see the truth. You are not your emotions. You are the one who observes them. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind is howling, the rain is pouring, but you are standing completely still, watching the storm rage around you. The storm is your emotions. The storm is loud, it's intense, but you are not the storm. You are the sky it moves through. This is what awareness gives you, the ability to remain steady, to remain clear, even when emotions try to pull you in every direction. But it's not a gift that appears overnight. It's something you must train. It's something you must practice, because your old habits will try to drag you back into reaction. Your old stories will try to convince you that you are powerless, that you can't help how you feel, that your emotions will always control you. But those stories are lies. You can help how you feel. You can control how you respond. You just have to be willing to watch. Most people live as prisoners inside their own minds because they don't know how to watch without judgment. The moment they feel anger, they either explode or they suppress it. The moment they feel fear, they either run or they freeze. They don't create room for curiosity. They don't allow themselves to sit with the emotion and ask, why is this here? Where is this coming from? What story am I believing right now? They are so busy either reacting or avoiding that they miss the opportunity to understand themselves. Awareness is not about suppressing emotions. It's not about pretending you don't feel. It's about creating enough space to investigate your feelings without becoming overwhelmed by them. When you build this skill, you start to notice the patterns. You start to realize that the things that trigger you are not random. They follow a pattern. Maybe you always get angry when you feel disrespected. Maybe you always feel sad when you experience rejection. Maybe you always feel anxious when you're uncertain. These patterns are not your destiny. They are just emotional habits you've been practicing for years. And habits can be broken, but first they must be seen. You can't break what you don't see. That's why awareness is the first weapon. It's your flashlight in the dark corners of your mind. When you shine that light on your emotions, they lose their grip. The storm is still there, but now you're standing outside of it, watching it pass. You begin to see that anger is just energy rising in the body. You begin to see that fear is just your mind projecting worst-case scenarios. You begin to see that sadness is just your attachment to how things should have been. When you watch without judgment, You see the stories your mind has been repeating, and you realize you don't have to keep believing them. You realize you have a choice, but this choice requires patience. There will be moments when your old self shows up, moments when you get triggered and react before you can catch yourself, moments when your awareness arrives too late. That's part of the process. That's part of the training. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to shorten the gap between the trigger and the awareness. Maybe at first it takes hours to notice you were caught in an emotional loop. Then it takes minutes, then seconds. Eventually you can catch yourself in real time. That's when you begin to feel the power. That's when you realize you can face the anger without becoming it. You can feel the fear without obeying it. You can experience sadness without letting it define you. This is not about becoming cold or emotionless. It's about choosing your emotional state with intention. It's about no longer being a slave to emotional habits that were programmed into you without your permission. It's about no longer living as a victim to every passing feeling, because the hidden enemy survives when you are unconscious. It survives when you are lost in reaction. But when you start to watch, you become a conscious creator of your life instead of a puppet pulled by unseen strings. You will start to feel a quiet strength growing inside you, not because life suddenly becomes easier, not because people stop challenging you, but because you stop giving your power away so easily. You stop needing the world to change for you to feel peace. You stop needing people to behave a certain way for you to feel stable. You realize you can hold that stability within yourself. You can meet life as it comes, with calm, with clarity, with courage. The world will still test you. The emotions will still rise, but now you'll meet them with different eyes. You'll see the anger rising, and instead of getting lost in it, you'll say, there it is. You'll see the fear showing up, and instead of shrinking, you'll say, I see you. You'll feel the sadness creeping in, and instead of collapsing, you'll say, I can hold this. You'll stop running from yourself. You'll stop hiding from your emotions. You'll start standing firm in the middle of the storm, knowing that no storm lasts forever. This is not an instant transformation. It's a daily choice, a daily practice. Some days you will feel strong, some days you will feel weak, but you must keep watching. You must keep catching yourself. Because every moment you watch without reacting, you are building a muscle. You are breaking the chains of old emotional habits. You are taking your life back one decision at a time. And slowly, the hidden enemy will lose its power. Slowly, you will stop being controlled. Slowly, you will begin to remember who you really are beneath all the noise. And you will realize that you have always had the power. The power was not in controlling what you feel. The power was in noticing what you feel without letting it control you. The power was in that quiet, steady awareness that has always been waiting for you to use it. The battle with emotions is not something you win once and never face again. It's not a mountain you climb and then rest at the top forever. It's more like walking into a room where your greatest fears, your deepest anger, your sharpest sadness all wait for you, disguised in new faces, new moments, new challenges. You don't get to run from this room. You don't get to lock the door and pretend it doesn't exist. Life has a way of bringing you back there, again and again, until you learn how to stand inside it without falling apart. Some people spend their whole lives avoiding that room. They distract themselves. They numb themselves. They build walls around their hearts. They convince themselves that ignoring the problem is the same as solving it. But it's not. It never is. Because the hidden enemy you refuse to face always finds another way to reach you. The more you run, the more power you give it. Every time you escape into distractions, into anger, into excuses, you tighten the grip that the hidden enemy has over you. And you may think you're safe because you've built a life where you don't have to feel too deeply, where you can control the surface of things, but emotions don't live on the surface. They live beneath it. They wait for quiet moments, for late nights, for failures, for heartbreak, for loss. They wait for you when your guard is down, and when they rise with the weight of all the times you refuse to face them. They rise stronger, and this is why the only way to truly master your emotions is to walk straight into that room, to face the things you've been avoiding, to stand in front of them without flinching. The hidden enemy uses your past against you. It collects every painful moment, every betrayal, every mistake, and it builds stories around them. Stories like you're not enough, you're not safe, you can't trust anyone, you'll always fail. And those stories run on a loop in your mind. Sometimes you hear them clearly. Sometimes they whisper just beneath your awareness, shaping your actions without you realizing. The challenge is not just to hear them, but to question them. Just because you've thought something for years doesn't make it true. Just because you've felt something over and over doesn't mean it's real. The hidden enemy feeds on repetition. It feeds on your belief that the old story is the only story. You have to be willing to stop and ask yourself, is this really true? Is this belief really mine? Or was it given to me by my past, by my pain, by people who didn't know how to love me properly? Most people never ask these questions because they're afraid of what they might find. They're afraid to let go of the story because the story has become their identity. It's what they know. It's what they've carried for so long. And even if it's painful, there's a strange comfort in what's familiar. But comfort is not the same as freedom. If you want freedom, you have to be willing to break your own patterns. You have to be willing to sit in the fire of discomfort long enough to see that it won't destroy you. The hidden enemy shows up in the smallest moments, not just the big ones. It shows up when you hesitate to speak your truth because you're afraid of being judged. It shows up when you pull back from opportunities because you fear failure. It shows up when you lash out at people you love because something in you feels unsafe. These moments may seem small, but they're where the real battles happen. The way you show up in these moments decides whether you stay trapped or whether you start to break free. It's easy to talk about mastering emotions when life is smooth. It's easy to feel in control when nothing is pushing your buttons. But real mastery is tested when life presses on your wounds, when people trigger your deepest insecurities, when you are rejected, when you fail, when you're misunderstood. These are the moments when the hidden enemy rises with full force. And this is when most people collapse. They fall into old reactions. They lash out. They shut down. They run. And the cycle continues. But if you can catch yourself in these moments, if you can take one breath before reacting, if you can create even the smallest space, you begin to reclaim your power. The hidden enemy wants you to believe that your emotions are bigger than you, that you are powerless in the face of them, that once anger rises, you must follow it, that once fear appears, you must obey it. But the truth is, you are always bigger than what you feel. You are always capable of holding space for your emotions without letting them dictate your actions. You can feel the storm without becoming the storm. When you start to live like this, people around you will notice. They may not understand what has changed in you, but they will feel it. They will feel your calm, your steadiness, your presence. They will see that things that used to break you no longer shake you, and this is not because you've hardened. It's because you've softened into your own strength. You've learned that emotions are not something to be feared. They are something to be witnessed, something to be understood, something to be allowed without losing yourself in them. You will still feel anger. You will still feel fear. You will still feel sadness. Mastery is not about erasing these emotions. It's about relating to them differently. It's about no longer seeing them as enemies but as messengers. It's about asking, what is this emotion trying to show me? What is this reaction pointing me toward? Sometimes anger shows you where your boundaries are. Sometimes fear shows you where you need to grow. Sometimes sadness shows you what you truly care about. Emotions can be your greatest teachers if you stop running from them. This doesn't mean you have to drown in every feeling. It doesn't mean you have to believe every thought. It means you stay present long enough to understand what's real and what's just an old story playing on repeat. It means you take ownership of your emotional life instead of blaming the world for how you feel. You stop saying, they made me angry, they made me afraid, they made me sad. You start saying, I felt anger, I felt fear, I felt sadness, and I chose how to respond. This is a radical shift in the way you live. It's a shift from victim to creator, and it's not something that happens once. It's something you practice every single day. Some days you will win the battle. Some days you will slip, But you keep coming back. You keep watching. You keep catching yourself sooner. You keep shortening the time between reaction and awareness. And over time, the hidden enemy loses its grip. Over time, you stop being dragged by your emotions and start guiding them instead. You start using them as fuel instead of chains. You start walking through life with a steady kind of power, a quiet kind of confidence, a deep sense of freedom that comes from knowing you are no longer controlled by the storms inside you. There is something quietly powerful about reaching the point where you no longer fear your own emotions. It is not something that happens overnight. It is not something you can force. It is the result of years of falling and getting back up, of sitting with uncomfortable feelings instead of escaping them, of choosing to walk straight into the storms you used to run from. Along the way, you realize that the emotions you feared were never really the problem. The problem was your resistance to them, your desperate need to control, suppress, or escape them. The emotions were simply signals, messengers, invitations to understand yourself on a deeper level. But when you live in fear of your emotions, you become a prisoner of them. You spend your life trying to outrun sadness, trying to silence anger, trying to bury fear. And in doing so, you give them more power over you. What most people don't see is that when you suppress an emotion, you don't get rid of it. You push it into the shadows of your mind where it festers, where it grows stronger, where it quietly dictates your choices without you even realizing it. That is how the hidden enemy gains control over your life. Not by shouting, not by making itself obvious, but by slipping into your subconscious and pulling the strings from the background. It's the quick temper you can't explain, the anxious overthinking you can't stop, the quiet sadness that lingers no matter how much you achieve. It's the unspoken patterns that keep repeating, the relationships that crumble in the same way, the goals you abandon the moment fear shows up. When you start to face your emotions head on, you disrupt these patterns. You start to see where your triggers come from. You start to understand why certain things provoke you, why certain people irritate you, why some situations make you feel small. You begin to trace your reactions back to their source, back to old wounds you never fully addressed, back to stories you told yourself when you were too young to know better. And as you do this work, layer by layer, you loosen the grip of the hidden enemy. You take back the parts of yourself you unknowingly gave away. The process is not clean. It is not simple. Some days you will feel like you are making progress, like you are finally free, and then suddenly you will find yourself triggered again, reacting in old ways, falling into old thought loops. This is not failure. This is the work. This is what growth looks like. It is not a straight line. It is not a staircase you climb once. It is a winding path where you circle back again and again to the places that need healing. And each time you return, you meet them with a little more awareness, a little more compassion, a little more strength. You learn to sit with your anger without being consumed by it. You feel the fire rise in your chest, the tightness in your jaw, the urge to lash out. But instead of acting, you breathe. You pause. You give yourself space to choose a response instead of falling into a reaction. You start to see that anger is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It shows you where your boundaries have been crossed, where you have abandoned your own needs, where you have held silent resentment. It is there to wake you up, not to destroy you. You learn to sit with your sadness without sinking into it. You allow the tears to come. You allow the heaviness in your chest. You allow the aching in your bones. But you don't make sadness your identity. You don't drown in stories of hopelessness. You sit with the sadness like an old friend who has come to tell you something important. You listen, you feel, and then you let it pass. You begin to understand that sadness does not mean you are broken. It means you are alive. It means you have dared to care. It means you have dared to open your heart. You learn to sit with your fear without letting it control your decisions. You feel the racing heart, the tight throat, the shaking hands. You hear the thoughts telling you to back away, to stay small, to avoid the risk. But you stay with yourself. You remind yourself that fear is not a stop sign. Fear is a signal that you are stepping into something unknown. You begin to see fear as a doorway, not a wall. You walk through it again and again until courage becomes your natural state. And in this process, you begin to experience a kind of freedom you never knew was possible. It's not the loud, flashy freedom people often chase. It's the quiet freedom of knowing that you can face anything and not lose yourself. It's the freedom of knowing that you can feel deeply without being shattered. It's the freedom of knowing that you can walk through fire and come out stronger. This freedom changes the way you move through life. It changes the way you love. You no longer love from a place of desperation, from a place of needing someone else to complete you. You love from a place of fullness, from a place of choice, from a place of deep security in yourself. You no longer need to control people to feel safe. You no longer fear losing someone because you know you will never lose yourself again. It changes the way you pursue your goals. You no longer chase success to prove your worth. You no longer crumble in the face of failure because you no longer tie your identity to your achievements. You pursue your goals with passion, with dedication, but without attachment. You understand that success and failure are simply experiences, not definitions of who you are. It changes the way you face adversity. You stop seeing challenges as punishments. You stop asking why me when life gets hard. Instead, you meet adversity with a steady mind and an open heart. You understand that life is not supposed to be comfortable all the time. Growth happens in discomfort. Strength is built in resistance. You begin to welcome the hard moments because you know they are shaping you into someone who cannot be shaken. And perhaps most importantly, this freedom changes the way you relate to yourself. You stop fighting your own mind. You stop abandoning yourself when things get hard. You learn to be your own anchor. You learn to hold space for your own emotions, to comfort yourself, to guide yourself. You become the person you always needed, the person you once looked for in others. The people around you may not notice these changes right away. They may still try to provoke old reactions. They may still expect you to crumble under pressure, but you will know that something is different. You will feel it in the way you breathe, in the way you pause before responding, in the way you no longer chase or beg or fight for things that are not meant for you. You will carry a quiet power that speaks louder than any words. And over time, you will realize that the hidden enemy that once controlled you has lost its grip. You will see that you are no longer the person you used to be. You have become someone who can face the storms, who can hold the weight of your own emotions, who can walk through life with a steady heart and a clear mind. You have become someone who leads, someone who loves, someone who lives fully, not because life is easy, but because you have mastered the art of standing tall in the middle of it all.